Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays get their 5th shutout of the season with the help of their American League Pitcher of the Month. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here at 12:01 on this Sunday morning. This late Rays postgame edition show is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida, We have a 3-0 win that took place this afternoon in Arlington over the Texas Rangers to discuss. Rich Hill gets the win, goes 5-inning shutout, just like he did in New York his last time around. They knock around the Rangers starter early, 3 hitters into the game, and they had a 2-0 lead, and of course they never looked back. Colby Allard, the Ranger starter, did end up getting a little bit settled, quite settled. In fact, he faced the minimum the rest of the way through his 5-inning start. And, 5 innings of 2 runs is not bad considering the last time he pitched against the Rays was, facing 3 batters in the 9th inning when he struck out the side. So the Rays now even up this series as well. The Texas Rangers clinched the season series last night, so that's obviously no longer in play, but the Rays, of course, can still win this series here with a chance for a rubber match victory tomorrow afternoon at about 2:30, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. And yes, we did officially go back and we put it in the books because it really isn't official until I put it in the books. Brian Yarbrough's complete game in the Bronx against the New York Yankees, the first complete game that the Rays have had in over 700 games, and since May 14th of 2016 when Matt Andriese did it against the Oakland A's. So we have that to discuss as well. We'll do that after really the post-game show, and I know it's a little bit later. Of course, the game this afternoon got started at about 4 o'clock and was over at about 7, but I think if we're doing shows on the weekend at all, this is probably how we're going to do it. Instead of doing it right after the game like we do on weeknights, we'll just do it, kind of at that 10 o'clock start time. So it's, Monday through Sunday. We're on the air at about the same time and keep it streamlined and all that stuff. So if we've got anyone listening, because again, I know this is a bit of an odd format, we thank you for tuning in and would like to let you know if you are interested in calling the show, we would love for you to do that. 877-566-1020 is the number to call if you'd like to talk Rays. A lot of good things going with this team right now. They were 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position, which is .250. I saw a stat that the Rays are hitting, I believe, somewhere along the lines of .280 with runners in scoring position during their last however many games. And of course, they've, I think, averaged something like 6 games on the road this season, which is absolutely insane. And of course, that hot stretch they were on where they were scoring 6 runs every game, home, road, no matter what. That's died down a little bit, but again, they get their first shutout since late April, their 5th of the season, against a Texas Rangers team that they really should be doing this against. I think obviously yesterday's loss was a little bit disappointing. They came back late and made it close, but were not able to take the lead after going down 5-0 in the middle of the game. Well, today it was a very different story where the first 3 batters of the game, it was a leadoff walk to Manny Margot and really not a competitive at-bat. Then Yanni Diaz singles to make it runners at the corners with nobody out. Or rather, it was actually second and third because Diaz was able to get to second base on the throw over to third. So second and third, nobody out. And then Austin Meadows doing what he has done lately, and he notched a 2 RBI single to make it a 2-0 Rays lead. By the way, Austin Meadows is right at the top in the American League with runs batted in. I think he's got somewhere along the lines of 46, 47, 48. And we are exactly 60 games into the season. The Rays are now 37-23, and that was the other thing I wanted to discuss also was the last couple weeks I've been kind of waiting for this discussion where once they got done with their 60th game, and of course compare that with their performance in the 60-game regular season last year where they went 40-20, and I think going into the year even, and especially at times in April or even by mid-May, that they were going to get anywhere near that 40-20 record. I don't think any of us thought that was very likely. Well, they end up just 3 games under that 40-20 mark. Of course, as I said, 37-23. They're the first team in the majors this season to get to a 37th win, so I believe it's still good for the best record in the majors. San Diego is losing, and I'm not sure who else is at the top, but the Rays right now, I believe, are at the top of the majors. So a lot of great things going. Obviously, the 11-game win streak and then the 5-game win streak right after that. And, of course, that stretch where they went 16-1 in 17 games. That is mostly what they have to thank. And, of course, as Dave Will says on the radio calls the last few days, if we can put together a couple more of those, 16-1 stretches, I feel pretty good about our postseason chances. And, of course, with the tongue planted firmly in cheek, as he also says. So they put themselves in great positioning. Boston, it is amazing how long they have held on. I'm very eager to see them the next time they face off against the Rays in the Trop in a couple weeks, and that'll be a good measure, I think, for where things are at in the division. But I think, of course, if you had to say right now, you would be extremely pleased with where the team is at, and they're poised for a series victory tomorrow afternoon against a team that is dead last in their respective division, which is the Texas Rangers in the American League West, so all is well. At this point, we're going to take a short break. When we return, to get into our official post-game report of this afternoon's 3-0 win. If you'd like to call the show, you can do so during the break at 877-566-1020 is the number to call. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC.
And at 12:09 on this Sunday morning, we return on the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call, 877-566-1020. We have our post-game report of this afternoon's 3-0 win over the Rangers. And still to come is our discussion of, Thursday's win over the Yankees, the Ryan Yarbrough complete game. And also still to come is the preview of tomorrow afternoon's game against the Rangers. It looks like it is going to be Michael Wacha in somewhat of an opening role with, I believe, Colin McHugh to follow. So it is going to be in a little bit of an adventure to get some innings tomorrow. But against Dane Dunning, the hope is that runs will be somewhat easy to come. So they should be at least fine in that contest. But today's 3-0 win ties the series one game apiece. It improves the Tampa Bay Rays to a Major League best 37-23. They are now 22-10 on the road, and drops the Texas Rangers to 23-37, 14-14 at home. And with Boston's win in the Bronx today, that keeps the Red Sox a game back of the Rays for first place in the American League East. So the Rays, white-knuckling, holding on to their one-game division lead. For the Rays, the victorious Rays, 3 runs on 5 hits, no errors. For Texas, no runs on 4 hits, no errors for them either. Getting the win for the Rays, and arguably, well, it's got to be Glasnow, but the second best starter right now for the Rays, Rich Hill. He's now 5-2 on the season after capturing the Major League Baseball's American League Pitcher of the Month for the month of May, the award. Today he went 5 innings, shutout, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, and only 2 hits allowed. So, 3 base runners over 5 innings, and he was absolutely dazzling. Of course, one of the main narratives, I think, in today's game was the very wide and generous strike zone by home plate umpire Roberto Ortiz. I don't think this Rich Hill start would have gone quite as it did without the home plate umpiring, if you will, but you have to take what you can get. And, I mean, hey, the Rangers were pitching with the same home plate umpire, so they just, I guess as a Rays fan, as a homer, you would say, well, so what, the Rays took advantage of it. It's the Rangers' fault that they didn't. But I think the Rangers, they got a little bit shortchanged with the umpiring here today. Getting the loss for Texas, Colby Allardy's now 1-2, 5 innings of 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, and 1 walk. Not a terrible start for him, and as I said, after the first 3 batters of the game reached base, he faced the minimum the rest of the way through 5, so he actually caught a little bit of a groove, and I think also, as I just said, was not to the extent of Rich Hill, but was a beneficiary of some strike 3 calls, some generous strike calls in any count, rather. And then getting the save for Tampa Bay, Diego Castillo, his 9th of the season, his scoreless 9th inning where he struck out the side. So Diego Castillo's first appearance since last Sunday, that was that home game against the Phillies where he loaded the bases and I believe brought the tying run to the plate, and then ended up not allowing any runs. But it was a little bit of an adventure, and you combine that with having almost a full week off, 5-6 days depending on how you want to look at it. I think that was very interesting because usually Cash would want to get Castillo in games after that and try and get him to work out whatever issue he was having. But I think the other side of that coin, you would say, is that right now, until Nick Anderson comes back, maybe until Fireisen takes form, I know some people are really high on him, Diego Castillo is the highest leverage reliever that the Rays have at their disposal right now, and with it being in the first week of June, you want to be careful in preserving that player, obviously, so maybe that's why they go almost a week without using him. And good to see that maybe that time off actually did him some good. As I said, struck out the side in the 9th against the 9-hitter, who was a pinch hitter, and then the 1 and 2 hitters getting Adolis Garcia to fan for the final strike of the game. So the lineup that Kevin Cash put out today was a very unique one, you would say, and they have used 59 unique lineups in the 60 games that they have played this season. Defensively, in the outfield from left to right, it was Randy Arozarena in left, Kevin Kiermaier in center, Manuel Margot in right. And then in the infield from third to first, Mike Brasso at third, Taylor Walls at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second base, Yandy Diaz at first, Mike Zunino did the catching, and the designated hitter was Austin Meadows. Against a lefty starter, and of course the Rays have struggled mightily against left-handed pitching this season. I don't think the lineup was much of a surprise at all. I think we predicted just about everything. It was going to be Meadows to DH. We got the outfield right with Margot and Arozarena in the corners. I believe we had Lau maybe getting a day off. That was the only thing maybe that we got wrong, but basically all that means is that Wendell ended up being the odd man out instead of maybe Brasso at second and Wendell at third. You put Brasso at third and Lau at second, which is how they ended up doing it today. And Walls at shortstop to get the switch hitter bat. Mike Zunino it was in the lineup after getting the day off the day before. And then Yandy at first, which is probably going to be the norm with Ji-Man Choi out. And we did get an update on Ji-Man Choi, of course, went on the 10-day IL a couple days ago with the left groin tightness. Of course, he had arthroscopic surgery on his right knee that caused him to miss some time in spring training and even going into the regular season. So the right knee, the left groin, you can kind of connect the dots, and Kevin Cash did as much, saying that the injuries were related. So I think they were best served to just kind of give him some time, and that's what they decided to do. But as I said, I think they said 10 to 15 days, dating back to, what was it, June 3rd. So hopefully he won't be missing too much time, but in the meantime, going back to how we were at the beginning of the year with mainly Yandy at first and Wendell at third base on most days. The way that the lineup was ordered, Manuel Margot led off, followed by Yandy Diaz and Austin Meadows. Randy Arozarena hit cleanup. I know, I'm surprised at almost every name I'm reading here. Brandon Lau bats fifth. Brasso sixth, and the 7-8-9 of Walls, Zunino, and Kiermaier. So let me give that to you again without getting all surprised. Margot, Diaz, Meadows, with Arozarena cleanup. Lau and Brasso the 5-6, and a 7-8-9 of Walls, Zunino, and Kiermaier. So yeah, it's a very unique lineup. Margot moves all the way to the top. He's even hit ninth. I think even within the last week. So Margot is a guy that I think is a prototype 1 through 9 hitter, kind of like a Brett Gardner, but obviously with a little bit more pop in the bat. And of course, he steals the show a little bit with his 5th home run of the year. That gave the Rays the 3-0 lead in the 8th inning. With Ji-Man Choi out, obviously they shake some things up. Wendell had kind of taken, I think, Choi's place. We saw that yesterday with Wendell batting third. But with some guys struggling, mainly Arozarena, who's hit first or second almost every game, for over the last month, hits all the way down in the cleanup spot, which I don't think is necessarily a great spot for him, but it's not like you're going to have him hit any lower than that, with him being one of the best hitters on your roster, even if he's in a bit of a slide right now. So he bats cleanup. Meadows, who's been one of the hottest hitters, not just on the Rays, but really in the majors, hits third, and you keep him at the top of the order. And of course, that move pays off with the 2 RBI single in the first inning. Lau, who has really been horrendous against left-handed pitching, that makes sense to have him in the middle of the order rather than at the top. He's even hit cleanup a few times this week, so he goes down to 5. And then at the bottom of the order is really to be expected. Kiermaier batting 9th is really the only thing that is noteworthy. So we'll go 1 through 9 in everyone's day at the plate. Quite a bit of offers, which makes sense on a day when you only get 5 hits. It was Lau 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Same with Brasso 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. And then both Zunino and Kiermaier were 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. So really the bottom of the order did not give them much of anything. But to be fair, really the only consistent offense they had was the first 3 batters of the game, and after that it went cold. So basically they went 27 outs without having much offense outside of that Margot solo shot in the 8th. So that is a little bit interesting, but you got to get runs where they come, and with how good their pitching is, obviously they're able to hold on. Margot in the leadoff spot today goes 1 for 3 with 2 runs scored, 1 knocked in, 1 walk, and no strikeouts, an average that's up to 241, and he's certainly been the most clutch hitter. He's great with 2 strikes. At least at a point last week, he was leading the American League with batting average with 2 outs as well. Has been great with runners in scoring position. And I think having him in the leadoff spot is an interesting dynamic for sure, and would really only do that against a lefty starter like Colby Allard, but that presents opportunities like he had today. He worked a leadoff walk in the first inning, which was not a difficult at-bat to work. Allard was giving them all fastballs, and none of them particularly close. It ended up being a 3-1 count, and he took a fastball low and away for ball 4, and of course he came across the score for the first, and what ended up being the game-winning run. He grounded out grounded out with the bases empty and 2 outs in the second to end that inning. The next time he came up was a ground out in what was a 1-2-3 inning in the 5th, and then of course in the 8th inning he hit that solo home run, which was his 5th of the season. Kind of hard to believe he hasn't hit more than that, but he's on pace basically to hit for 15 home runs, which I think for a guy like that is pretty good. He was going up against the lefty Joely Rodriguez, and he started off 0-2, fouled a couple of pitches off, then took a ball 1-2. So with the 2-strike count, he got a changeup down and in, and he just kind of golfed it. And you could tell right off the bat that it was going to be a home run. Just had made such forceful contact with it, and it wasn't even really a bad pitch. And that's an interesting thing to me about this Rays offense right now, is there were times when runs were very, very hard to come by, and it seemed like the only time they were doing much of anything is when they were getting pitches right down the middle, or guys were just getting their pitch and their pitch alone. Like Arozarena was hitting only fastballs, nothing else. Lau was getting pitches middle in. Austin Meadows was getting pitches down and in. Things like that. No one was doing anything other than kind of their swing plane, that kind of stuff. But right now, you're seeing that start to change. I mean, I've seen Austin Meadows go away on pitches down and away, which is usually what he fans on, but now he's making good and solid contact off of them. And things like, Margot hitting that pitch down and in when he's actually at his best when pitchers are pitching him away and he can go the other way. It seems like that's where most of his production has come from, but I think Margot is actually kind of what Arozarena wants to be, where Margot is swinging at pitches that aren't even anywhere close to the zone, and he's getting base hits off of them. Arozarena tries to do that, and he's striking out all over the place. So Margot, I think, is just such a valuable asset, and because of his ability to hit a pitch, any type of pitch, fastball, off speed, breaking ball, any part of the zone, in any count, in any situation, men on base, 2 outs, whatever. He's the guy that you want to come up in every situation, no matter the situation, no matter the pitcher, etc. So it's always good when he has a couple good moments, and he certainly did today with, of course, the game-winning run in the first, and then a nice little insurance run because they only had a 2-0 lead, and they were going into the 9th with a guy that hadn't pitched in a week. So you can never go wrong with an insurance run, and Margot provided that. It went 377 to left, which was a pulled home run, obviously, as you would imagine, with the changeup down and in. Yandy Diaz in the 2 spot goes 1 for 4 with a run scored, no walks, no strikeouts, an average that's just down to 253, but might not have moved a point, obviously, with a 250 average here today. An on base of 386, so getting on base still in June, almost 40% of the time, is great, and that's obviously where he provides most of the value. He hit a single in the first inning that made it runners second and third with nobody out, and that was his main and only contribution to the game. And let me just say this, of course, when we're talking about the guys in the lineup, we also need to discuss what they did on the defensive side as well. And Manuel Margot, I don't recall the inning. It would have been a fly out to right. it must have been that play. It was a Chris Davis curveball that he went away with, and Margot had to make a running catch. There was a runner at first with one out in a 2-0 game, so if Margot had not taken that hit away, they would have been in some trouble, and of course it was a sliding grab, and he's had his fair share of those so far this season, so wanted to make sure Margot got his credit for that. When I was watching through the Thursday broadcast, the Rays game against the Yankees, Bally Sports Sun put an interesting graphic up about the Rays defense as a whole this season. They have 35 defensive runs saved, which obviously leads the majors, and that 35 runs is worth about half of the run differential on the season. So that makes an extreme amount of difference. When you're playing in one-run games, seemingly every night, every other night, routinely, leading the majors in defensive runs saved goes a long way, and that's what we talked about going into the year as something that was going to be a key to their success, and so certainly so far it has been paying off and has been executed effectively. They have out of those 35, 13 of those runs have been saved by outfielders, which leads the majors as well. They've probably got the best no-fly zone, if you will, defensive outfield in the league. When they go, Margot in left, Kiermaier in center, Phillips in right. Those are basically three center fielders that you have out there. All three of them are center fielders by trade. So, absolutely terrific. And, Rosarena has been pretty good as well. We saw Meadows, it was not a terrific outfielder, but he did pick up an assist gunning a runner down at home plate yesterday. So, even kind of their backup rotation guys have saved some runs also. And, as well, out of those 35 total defensive runs saved, another 13 of those have been saved by infield shifts, which is tied for the league in the lead in Major League Baseball. So, anything, they're doing it in all kinds of ways. The outfield making running, diving, sliding catches. The shifts, we've seen Brandon Lau. I'm convinced every game he has at least one play where he's lined up in the outfield grass between first and second, and he has to range to his left to make a running grab and throw the runner at first, which before maybe 2019, 2018, those were just routine base hits to right. And now with the advent of that shift, they're literally taking legit singles away from guys. And obviously that's where that 13 defensive runs from the shift saved comes from. So that I just wanted to do that its piece, and that was tied into our discussion about Margot's run and catch to prevent really at least a run coming across to score in the fourth inning against Chris Davis. So that deserves some attention, of course. Getting back to our discussion of Yandy Diaz, he singled to deep center, so that's good to see him go to the middle of the field. It was a line drive, so get that exit velo going up. No more weak grounders to opposite field. Hopefully, if he can just get those liners in the air a little bit, we can start talking about some home runs. But you take what you can get. Even though it was a single, they ended up having runners at second and third because of the throw that went into third base, but Margot was safe there, and so that allowed, with one swing of the bat by Meadows, to make it a 2-0 game. And of course in the first, with Rich Hill on the mound and a poor Texas offense, that was able to put the game away. So the reason obviously we spent so much time talking about that sequence is because that really was the make or break moment in the game, and thankfully for the Rays, it was the make moment rather than the break moment. Also for Yandy Diaz, he grounded out in a 1-2-3 in the third. He struck out to start the sixth and grounded out after Margot's homer. So at least he was putting the ball in play, but put the ball on the ground, and then also with the strikeout. Checking in on that strikeout in the sixth inning, it was against the righty, DeMarcus Evans. Took a slider high and away for strike one. Took a fastball up and in that he's supposed to take, but was called a strike. 0-2, and of course Roberto Ortiz's gigantic strike zone. Takes a couple of pitches to even the count at 2-2. Fouls off a fastball, and then just got a cutter down and away and just chased it, which is a little bit rare, but with 2 strikes, you don't completely blame him for that. Obviously you've got to protect in that situation. And then that was to lead off an inning. And Arozarena also batted, got a double later in the inning. So that, more runs could have come, but they won the game easily anyway. So it doesn't really matter all that much. Batting third, it was Austin Meadows, and he was the DH today. Yandy was fine at first base, as he has been all of the year. Meadows today was 1 for 4 with that 2 RBI single in the first. No walks, no strikeouts. An average that's up to 244, an on base of 349, and a slugging of 537. And as we've been saying, an OPS of over 900. So he's been really, really terrific. It's I said yesterday that watching him play, you would have a hard time believing the numbers, but I'm seeing him, and like with Rich Hill, I'm going to have to kind of take some things back probably with Meadows, which I'm certainly happy to do because when he's going, this team is going. And of course, going into the year, there was all the talk about him having a career resurgence with him dropping some weight, and he was back to that 2019 form where he batted over 290 and hit over 30 home runs. So if he was going to be, in that physical form and putting up anywhere close to those numbers, he was going to drive the team like he did for stretches during that season. And so he's got, the 14 home runs, 16 doubles. He's having a field day. He's at the top of the American League with runs batted in. And today, usually, the only pitches he's getting hits off of are down and in and middle. We've seen him get hits middle up because he's a fly ball guy. That's the swing plane. But lately, we've been seeing him take pitches kind of down and away, middle away, pitches that are usually he's swinging and missing on because he's trying to put them in the air to the pull side. But now he's starting to kind of just with a clean stroke go the other way for a line drive base hit. And that was somewhat the case. It ended up being a single to center, and it was on a 2-0 count from Colby Allard, and he was getting all cutters in that sequence, and it was 88 miles an hour middle away. And obviously the cut action, it's cutting away from him as it is, and so he was able to hit a line drive to center field, and with second and third, that was able to make it a 2-0 game, and of course ended up being the difference in the ball game. That another thing that defined that sequence early on was that the Rays were kind of dictating the count. Of course, with Colby Allard issuing the leadoff walk, that pretty much set the dynamic where the Rays batters knew, okay, well, let's make him throw strikes, and he didn't. He would get behind those hitters like he did to Meadows 2-0, and so then he's got to come back to you in the strike zone, and that was the exact issue that was happening to the Rays in that Yankee series, whether it was with Glasnow or McClanahan. Yarbrough, to an extent, had the same issue, but for whatever reason, the Yankees were just kind of, confused, flustered, flabbergasted, any kind of word you want to use. They were just having issues with them. And when you make the hitter come to you, that's where all the hits are going to come, and that's something that the Rays can swing in their favor. They've got a lot of guys in their lineup that work tricky at-bats, whether it's Wendell, Choi, Yandy Diaz, even Margot at times, and here it was with Meadows off of the 2-0 count. So that was a really important part, and it ended up, as I said, making a difference. He flew out to left in a 1-2-3 in the third, grounded out with 1 out and nobody on in the sixth, and also grounded out with bases empty, 2 outs in the eighth. So put the ball in play all 4 times. Got it in the air a couple of times, put it on the ground a couple of times. So Meadows, he's on fire right now, and he's continuing his stretch where he was one of the best hitters in the month of May, and as I would say, easily carried that success into the month of June, as we are now about a month in or rather a week in to this new month. Randy Arozarena batted cleanup. He was 1 for 4, no walks, a strikeout, an average that's down to 253, and on base at 340. So I would continue to say having a bit of a rough stretch, but was 1 for 4 with a double, his 10th of the season, so that was good to see. With Meadows at first and nobody out in the first inning, he grounded out and moved Meadows over to second base, so putting the ball in play, that's always a plus, and put a runner in scoring position with only 1 out. So you would say really did his job in that spot. Struck out in a 1-2-3 in the third, and then in the 6th hit that 2-out double. That was, as I said, in the 6th inning, and it was against the righty DeMarcus Evans, so righty on righty, and was already down 0-2, took a fastball, chased a slider, got the same pitch, kind of that slider down and away, and was able to pull it somehow. How did he pull that baseball? That's Arozarena, right? A slider down and away to the right-handed hitter, and he ends up pulling it to deep left, and that's just his strength and ability to drive the baseball. So that was good, obviously, and then he grounded out to the pitcher in a 1-2-3 inning in the 9th. Outside of that, there's not really much to discuss. Everyone else pretty much had offers. As I said, Lau 0 for 4, Brasso 0 for 4, both of those with 2 strikeouts. Taylor Walls was 1 for 3 with a strikeout. He had a leadoff single in the 2nd, and then was forced out on the base path by a double play ball by Kiermaier that KK was able to run out. So ended up not really making too much of a difference. Struck out when Colby Allard struck out the side in the 4th, and then grounded out in a 1-2-3 in the 7th, and then outside of that, Zunino and Kiermaier were both 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. And both of those guys are going to have nights like that. I think both have been pretty good hitters, maybe Zunino more so with the power stroke for sure, a slugging of 529. And you want to talk about power stroke, his slugging percentage is like less than 10 points lower than Meadows, who we just said was having a terrific power season. So Zunino obviously with the 12 home runs and all the doubles. So but with that comes over 3 with 2 strikeout nights, and that's just what's going to happen. Zunino also made a terrific play defensively. Kevin Cash called it a miracle. It was in the 1st inning. Rich Hill issued a 1-out walk to Adolis Garcia, and in an at-bat to Joey Gallo with 2 outs and Garcia at first. It was in the dirt to Gallo, and probably what should have been a wild pitch that got Garcia to second. Instead, Zunino was kind of standing up, and he just put his glove out, stretching it, to his left, and somehow just, whether it was he guessed it right or he was just sheer luck, the ball ended up going right into his mitt, bounced from the dirt all the way up to him standing and reaching out up in the air to his left side, and was able to gun down the runner at second base. So that was a huge play for him, and it really has been a treat to watch Zunino behind home plate, and something I hope we don't take for granted, because whether it's in a big game, you need the pitcher to have a good start, whatever, he's going to prevent wild pitches, and I think he's great with base runners and everything like that. It calls a fantastic game. Everything is a concrete wall, brick wall backstop, whatever you want to say. So that's terrific. Mike Brasso also took a double away from Nick Solak. That came in the 2nd inning. It probably would have been a double down the left field line. Brasso ranging to his right into foul territory, made kind of that run and grab, and then off the back foot, kind of the Jeter jump throw to get him at first base. So that was terrific as well, and that was pretty much all she wrote for the significant defensive stuff. The Rays lineup as a whole struck out 11 times, walked only 1, so that's not great. They go 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position, but you put up 2 in the first and then a solo home run later. With the pitching, 3 runs was going to be enough. And if it's funny, if the pitching wasn't good, we would be slamming probably the lineup more so than anything. So it's funny, and maybe that's just me how I work the narratives. I tend to kind of give the pitching more of a break, but I think it's just, in my opinion, it's deservedly so with how great the pitching has looked, and we'll talk about that now. Rich Hill, the starter, 5 innings shutout, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 2 hits, threw only 59 pitches, so very reminiscent of that start against the New York Yankees his last time out, where he went 5 shutout on 56 pitches. This time it was on 59, so pretty much identical if you really want to look at it that way. Kevin Couch was saying there's nothing wrong with him, but he had 3 straight starts where he went almost 100 pitches, went 8 innings, against Kansas City recently, and for a guy that's 41 years old and has looked as good as he has, you want to keep him healthy into the back part of the season, August, September, and hopefully maybe even starting some games in October, which would be absolutely wild if you told me that 41-year-old Rich Hill would be starting a playoff game for real, like not an open, but him having a legitimate start. But I think if he stays healthy, certainly with the knock on the wood there, that's absolutely a possibility. And he got the win and improved to 5-2. I think we should take this opportunity now to talk a little bit about his month of May, because of course the American League Pitcher of the Month in the month of May and everything with that. In the month of May, in 6 starts, 35 innings pitched, only 3 runs allowed, 36 strikeouts, 12 walks, pitched to an ERA in May of 0.78, which brought his ERA, basically cut it in half. At one point it was almost to 9. By the end of May it was 3.32. So had a lot of terrific starts. Of course, had that stretch where he went, 24 innings, or 24 straight innings without allowing a run. I believe it was something like that. 23 2/3 is when it, I think, is how it ended up. The innings scoreless streak. So he's absolutely turned it on. The old adage of he's a pitcher, not a thrower. There is an art to it. His pitches have kind of that late velo, I guess, some late movement that is really messing with some guys, and he has really turned it on. We talked about going into tonight that the curveballs called for strikes was going to be big, and thankfully for the home plate ump, Roberto Ortiz, that ended up being the case. And I think we officially need to take back, or I need to take back my take on Rich Hill. I'm sure I should have probably clipped it off, but just some of my anecdotes, tidbits about him, saying that we would be lucky if he's pitching into June. He's just a placeholder for the youngsters. He doesn't have any gas left in the tank. He's only got 2 pitches. The hitters know what he's coming. I was wrong on all of it. He's been an absolute stud. Of course, the Dick Mountain moniker coming back in full force. I think Dick Montana is now what he's being called, just with the absolute tear that he's been on. So all of it is 1,000% deservedly so. And it really has been fun to watch him this year. To pump 89-mile-an-hour cutters that are just completely confusing guys. They're taking it right down the middle. Whether they're looking curveball or what, I don't even know what the hitters are thinking when they step in the box against Rich Hill. It's like they're entranced, they're hypnotized, whatever. They look lost when they step into the batter's box against Hill, and to have him every 5th day, and Glasnow every 5th day. To have, I think, those two starters in particular has given this team a great boost, and obviously are 2 of the main heads of what is an absolutely spectacular pitching staff. So just wanted to tip my hat off to Rich Hill and the month of May that he had, and wish him some continued success this season. Of course, for the Rays, I would love for that to be the case, but he is doing himself quite an honor with this. I guess you would call it, in the twilight of his career, the I forget what you call it, but the encore is what I was looking for. A nice late career, second act encore, whatever you want to say, the finale, and what has been a really an outstanding career for Rich Hill tonight. He allowed, of course, that one out walk to Garcia that was erased by that absolutely terrific play by Mike Zunino. And after that, retired the next 7 in a row, allowed a one-out single, but then put him away in the 4th. And then in the 5th, allowed a 2-out triple, and then worked around that. That was really the only that was the only time a runner got past first base, was only once, and only 3 hits, or only 2 hits and the 1 walk. So there isn't much to say out of his 3 strikeouts. All 3 of them were looking. And just to make sure, I want to see where all 3 of those did take place. It was the leadoff at bat for Kiner Falefa. It was on a fastball down, so he expanded the zone there for sure. Joey Gallo to lead off the second inning. It was a fastball, at least a baseball off the plate for strike 3, and then later in that inning to Nate Lowe, it was a fastball right down the middle. So that one was the only one that wasn't a borderline pitch. And Roberto Ortiz, the home plate ump, was just giving Rich Hill all kinds of gifts. I think Hill would do well on himself to maybe send him a pear basket or one of those edible arrangements, something to say thank you to Roberto Ortiz. He would be remiss, Wood Hill, to do that, because I don't think he had the start that he would if not for Ortiz calling the game that he did. 59 pitches for Hill, 43 of which were for strikes. Faced 17 men, established the first pitch strike to 13 of the 17. So that was, I think, a big deal as well, to get ahead, stay ahead. The race to 2 strikes is what we talk about as the pitching philosophy for these guys. So that he was able to do that. Them taking fastballs down the middle, that happened a lot against him, and then to have the curveballs called for strikes as well, swinging through them. They were making some pretty solid contact off of the curveball, like it would be at the kind of the top of the zone. Chris Davis had a pretty powerful fly out to left in the 1st against it, and then of course that diving catch by Margolin right in the 4th. Those were both off of the curveball, so they were kind of timing it up, but like Dave Wills always says, whether it's a curveball or a slider, when thrown right, even if they're sitting on that pitch and they're selling out for it, they're still not going to be able to get it for hits, at the very least, if make contact on it at all. So, Blake Snell obviously taking copious notes to that effect, but with Rich Hill, he's certainly rolling tonight, and we look forward to seeing where he goes on, obviously, the rest of the season. In the 6th inning, Ryan Thompson came on and pitched an inning in a 3rd scoreless, allowed a 1-out single to Kiner Falefa, but then erased it with a double play ball, got the first out in the 7th, and then that was it. 1 1/3 of basically perfect baseball, I would say. Faced the minimum, obviously, 23 pitches, 15 strikes. The frisbee slider was working. It seems like that's more so now as a pitch. He kind of was going fastball heavy there for a while, but obviously the slider is certainly his better pitch. Jeffrey Springs finished that 7th inning, getting the 2 outs there, and then Pete Fairbanks with which ended up being a pretty clean 8th inning. It seems like it's always an adventure when Pete is on the mound, but got the first 2 outs via strikeout, and he was facing the bottom of the order. Did face Nate Lowe and Charlie Culberson first, allowed a single to Willie Calhoun, but then he was caught stealing, so also put a notch in the belt of Mike Zunino for that, and helped potentially prevent a big inning in a 3-0 ball game, of course, and that could have been like where the Rays, they put up 2 in the 8th and then put up some more in the 9th. So thankfully they limited the damage in that regard. And then of course The most notable was Diego Castillo getting the save in the ninth, where he struck out the side. Jason Martin, Kiner Falefa, and Adolis Garcia all struck out swinging. Obviously, the sinker slider was pumping some fastballs in there as well that had less movement but more velo. There was an interesting sequence to Adolis Garcia, who's been a terrific hitter and is on track for AL Rookie of the Year. Hopefully, Arozarena overtakes him at some point in that conversation, but nevertheless, Garcia was fouling off some sliders down and away, and then as we see so often with 2 strikes, Castillo just throws the slider down and away, but further away, which hitters should be taking, but because Garcia got in the habit of kind of fouling him off and okay, I can make contact with that pitch, you get him to chase further and further out, and then before he knows it, he can't make contact with it at all, couldn't touch it, and they appealed to first base, I believe. First base, and first base umpire Tim Timmons raised the fist for the final strike and strikeout of the game, and Castillo picks up his 9th save of the season. So that's about it. 10 strikeouts for the pitching staff, only 1 walk. That was for Rich Hill, and only 4 hits obviously allowed across the course of a game. Also an interesting note, only 127 pitches thrown, 89 of which were for strikes. So allow me now to do some back of the napkin math now, and as far as what percentage that is. So excuse me, 70% of the pitches thrown by Rays pitchers today, 70% were for strikes. So that's terrific to see, absolutely, and that puts the 3-0 win in the books. Great team win. Offense scored just enough. The pitching was terrific. The defense was awesome as well. So all facets of the game was in play tonight. We turn the page now to tomorrow's contest, a rubber match, the final game between these two teams this season, as obviously there's no way that they would ever meet. I don't think the Rangers have any shot at making the playoffs at 23-37, but we do have the announced starters. It will be at 2:35 tomorrow afternoon, Michael Wacha against Dane Dunning. We'll start with the Rays side of things first. Michael Wacha, the 29-year-old right-hander, is 1-1 on the season with a .463 earned run average. His last time out against the New York Yankees he went just an inning and 2/3 of a run on a hit. That was a solo shot, I believe, to Miguel Andujar. Threw only 24 pitches. Since coming back off the injured list, he pitched on May the 2nd, did not pitch again after that because of the quad issue. Came back May 23rd, 2 innings, 24 pitches. May 27th, 3 innings, 25 pitches. And then May 31st, an inning and 2/3, 24 pitches. So 24, 25, 24 pitches, and then 2, 3, and 1.2 innings pitched. So looks like it's either a bit of a struggle to get him built back up, or they have no intention of having him be a full-blown starter and they just want him to be a reliever or more of a bulk guy the rest of the way. He said going into the season that he was prepared for whatever role that the Rays wanted to have him in. So I guess certainly putting that to the test. This is the first time, and obviously the only time this season, that he will face the Texas Rangers. Say maybe he gets 3 innings, because that would be my expectation if he's the starter. McHugh could come behind for 2 or 3. So let's just say, on the conservative side of the estimate, that Wacha and McHugh combined for 5 innings, which would be, good for a traditional start. I mean, they've got everyone out of the pen ready to go. Castillo, Fairbanks, Sprinks, Thompson, all the guys that pitched today. And then outside of that, looking at what they have, Fire Eisen obviously out of the pen as well. Kittredge, who was warming up, I believe, or no, that was during the Yarbrough complete game, excuse me. Sheriff as well, that they would probably want to get in the game potentially. So, and obviously they're going to have chances to get guys in the game. with a short start and kind of a short, probably McHugh stint to follow, unless McHugh decides to go 3 or 4, which I'm sure he's capable of, but we'll just have to see on that. And then on the other side of the game will be Dane Dunning, the 26-year-old right-hander, is 2-4 on the season with a 4.67 ERA. He's from Fleming Island, Florida. I don't know where that is, but Fleming, obviously, kind of funny that he's from there. Obviously, race pitcher Josh Fleming. Dane Dunning's last time out was a no decision against Colorado, where he went 4 2/3, 2 runs on 6 hits, no walks, 3 strikeouts, 78 pitches. He did face the Rays earlier this year in a tandem start on April 12th, went 4 innings scoreless, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts, only 2 hits allowed as well. As I go back now to see where those came against, it was a double for Austin Meadows and a double for Brett Phillips. So you would imagine that both of those would maybe be in the lineup. Maybe they give Kiermaier the day off. Keep in mind the team does have an off day Monday, and then they'll be back for a Tuesday-Wednesday set against the Washington Nationals. And then they have another off day after that. So that's going to be interesting to see how things go. I would imagine with the right-handed starter, and it looks like, he'll be poised to go for 4 or 5 innings, so a legit start. Stack the lefty. So maybe they could have Kiermaier and Phillips. So maybe say they go. If they want, it depends who they want to give a day off to. They could go all lefty. Meadows in left, Kiermaier in center, Phillips in right, Wendell at third base. Walls at shortstop, Lau at second, and then they would go, probably Yandy Diaz at first, Mejia maybe to catch if they just want to go every other day, but that would be up to pitcher's preference. Bullpen day, maybe you would go Zunino, but I don't think it really matters either way. And then the DH would be either Margot or probably a Rosarena, if that's how you want to go it. They could go dual catcher with Mejia and Zunino. That's also another possibility. So that would be my best guess for how they're going to play things. Also, another note, tomorrow was going to be Tyler Glasnow's day to pitch in the rotation. They just decided to give him some extra rest because, of course, he's been going awfully deep into ball games lately. And they combine that with the day off tomorrow, so he'll be, instead of on 4 days rest, he'll end up being on 6 days rest, which hopefully doesn't mess with him too much. And obviously the hope is it's not going to mess with him at all, and it'll be a good thing. And so they're basically they're just pushing kind of the rotation back, and with Waka due to pitch and McHugh getting having the ability to get bulk innings. This is a good spot to do it if they want to, and this is a big jump from what Glasnow did in 2020 to what he's doing now in 2021. I wouldn't be surprised if he, as we're 60 games in, he might have already matched, and to be honest, probably surpassed his inning total from last year already. So I'm going to take a look at that right now so we can be sure. Last season in 2020, Glasnow in 11 starts pitched 91 innings. And this season, 12 starts, he's pitched I was looking at the wrong stats. I was looking at strikeouts. In 2020, in 11 starts, Glasnow went 57 innings. This year in 12 starts, so just one more start, he's gone 77 innings, which is 20 more. So that, he's already pitched more. And he only pitched 60 innings in 2019 and only 55 in 2018. He's already set, by far already, a career high in innings. And it's June. It's early June. So they do have to be careful with him. Yes, I'm all in agreement with that. And they may even skip him a time or two through the rotation at some point this season. So he's going he'll pitch Tuesday night against the Washington Nationals. What we're going to do now is take a short break. When we return, I want to just do justice of that Ryan Yarbrough complete game, and we'll get into that contest of the against the New York Yankees on that Thursday afternoon when we return Don't go anywhere. Again, number to call if you'd like to share your thoughts. 877-566-1020. We'll be right back.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
HBC. And at 1 a.m. on this Sunday morning, we return on the William Haynes Show. The final part of tonight's show is our discussion of Thursday afternoon's Rays win over the New York Yankees by a score of 9-2. But obviously, the point that we want to discuss was the Rays' first complete game by a pitcher for the first time since May 14th of 2016. Again, that was Matt Andriese against the Oakland A's. The Rays went 731 games between complete games, longest such stretch in MLB history. The current longest active streak now without a CG is now held by the Blue Jays at 231. So the Rays at a 731 drought, the Jays now a 231 drought, which is now the longest active. That 731 stretch was by far the longest in MLB history. The second longest stretch was from June of 2014 to June of 2017 by the Marlins, where they went 480 games without. So that's a little over, half as many games. So this was by far, and you want to talk about unbreakable records. Cal Ripken Jr.'s streak. Barry Bonds' 71 home runs in 2004. Those kind of unbreakable records. I think that 731 game stretch without a complete game by pitchers will, I would imagine, will probably stand the test of time in Major League Baseball history. And of course, that stretch was all Kevin Cash. He had throughout that entire tenure, that was him as the manager, and obviously that was an organizational decision to do that, and that's how they set up the pitching. They don't want it to be a one-man show. They want it to be by committee, and I think that's just kind of a token or a symbolic taking form of that kind of mentality. For Ryan Yarbrough, it was coincidentally his first win as a starter since late 2019, where he went 8 2/3 against the Seattle Mariners. If you'll recall, obviously one out away from a complete game in a 1-0 lead, and they remove him because they want to match up with the last batter, whatever. Guys in the clubhouse were pissed after the game. It was a weird thing. They ended up, getting the American League second wild card that year, and everything ended up being fine, but really weird, and so that was his last win as a starter, and he was able to get it Thursday afternoon against the Yankees. I thought was pretty cool, and it's been a long drought. He has not been great as a starter really in his career, and the stats have bared that out. This was also his first career start against the New York Yankees ever, so that was terrific for Yarbrough. His stat line finished obviously at 9 innings pitched, 6 hits, for 2 runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Obviously, the no walks was a big part of that. 113 pitches, 74 of which were for strikes. So that's about 65% percentage, I believe. And then the 33 batters that he faced threw first pitch strike to 23 of the 33 men, which is good for 70% first pitch strikes. So that was a big deal as well. He had, 90, I think it was 90 pitches after 7 innings, and he came into the ninth over the 100 pitch count. But it was Cash, I guess he knew it was time. It was time to put the record to rest, kind of like when Cal Ripken Jr. Met with the manager to say, hey, I'm not going to play today. He voluntarily ended the streak. I think maybe Kevin Cash, in a way, was kind of doing that in his own. They had Kittredge, I believe, warming in the pen in the 7th inning, although it was in a 9-2 game at that point, so or rather a 9-1 game, actually. If things had really gotten away. And I think that was the other part of it that allowed Cash to do this, was that, they had that 8-run lead, and even before that it was not as big of a lead, but they, 2-1 lead in the 4th, 5-1 after 5, and then of course 9-1 after 7. So they had that opportunity to kind of let Yarbrough go, and certainly took advantage of that. And then there was a moment where Kevin Cash called down to the bullpen when the bottom of the 9th began, and basically just to tell everyone that they didn't want anyone to warm up, and that Yarbrough was going to be able to finish the game. And the note was that there was loud cheers coming from the visiting bullpen in Yankee Stadium, and basically to say that everyone, including the relievers on the Rays staff and obviously the coaches, they were all very excited about Yarbrough's chance to go CG. So I thought that was absolutely terrific, and a lot of cool stuff that came from that day. It was funny, talk about a random game, a Thursday getaway game in a 4-game weekday, series against the Yankees. I was working during the game. I didn't even find out until after. I was going to the Lightning game 3 of the second round with my buddy Aaron, who has done a segment on this show about a year ago talking NHL playoff hockey. And as soon as I walk in the door, because we were going to the game together, he's like, Yarbrough went complete game. And I didn't even know that it happened until that moment, which this is one of the bigger moments in Rays history, at least during the Kevin, that's hyperbole. One of the biggest moments, I think, in the Kevin Cash era, because 2016, 2017, obviously there was not a lot of success to be had. 2018 to the present, this is the real Kevin Cash era, or at least of success, and that this was the first and only complete game that we have during that stretch. That was a pretty big deal, and so the fact that, at least from my personal experience, it ended up being more so an afterthought. I just thought it's funny that, of course, baseball works out that way, that it is going to be on a random Thursday afternoon in June. Of course, it seems like that's where guys, first no-hitters and stuff come from. It's, baseball is a game of randomness and chance, and it was not different on this day. And then, you want to talk about his actual pitching. I thought got not necessarily bailed out, but assisted by home plate umpire Chad Whitson. Kind of like McClanahan and Glasnow had done earlier in the series. They were just kind of pitching away to the right-handed batters, and obviously Yarbrough, the lefty, that's not a great matchup, and that's why he hadn't started against the Yankees until Thursday. But was picking the corners just enough. I mean, he got that 5 innings of relief of 1 run in Yankee Stadium his last time against the Bronx Bombers, and kind of doing the same thing, the sliders and curveballs kind of down and away. Again, picking at the corners of the zone, and he was pitches that should have been called balls were getting called for strikes, and that's where the first pitch strikes came from in some of the time, and that he was able to throw 74 of his 113 pitches for strikes. There was a fair amount of called strikes in there. 24 of the 74 were called strikes, so I think that's pretty significant. 9 ground ball outs, 12 fly ball outs. or I guess the ground balls and the hits wouldn't be included in there as well, but 9 ground balls, 12 fly balls, and I think he's, in his career, I believe, has been more of I want to say a fly ball pitcher. It's hard to tell, really. But really the key for him is he running the cutter up and in to the righties, and he didn't even do that a whole heck of a lot. In a normal setting, I don't think he would have gone deeper than 6 innings, and you could tell the broadcasters, whether it was Dave and Andy on the radio or Dwayne and B.A. on the TV side, they didn't expect Yarbrough to go deep, especially not 9 innings. So it really was just kind of an everyday start where he was picking the corners and getting through, but just one inning led into another, and the next after that, and before he knew it, he had pitched a complete game. So it is kind of weird how it snuck up on everyone like that. And so the called strikes was a big deal, but of course, the weak contact certainly. He did allow a couple of homers, one to Gardner in the 3rd and one to Andahar in the 7th, but of course the short porch and right, that's going to happen a lot. So, and those were where the only 2 runs came from. So, and outside of that was absolutely terrific. I mean, had 1, 2, 3 innings in the 2nd, in the 6th, in the 8th, and in the 9th. And then, most every other inning only had one other guy come to the plate. 4 men came to the plate in the 1st, in the 3rd, in the 5th, in the 7th. So, I mean, really was getting through innings rather quickly. And like I said, that's what allowed him to go deep into the ball game. And that's really all I can say for Yarbrough. And he got the win and is now 3-3 on the year. And I think he's cemented himself, obviously, a place in Rays history. I think he's done so much for the franchise since making his major league debut early in 2018. He started, on the opening day roster with the squad, and was kind of the first. Sergio Romo will always be known as the first opener. Well, Ryan Yarbrough was the first bulk guy that came in after Romo, so that's where his career really took off. And of course, he went 18-5 his rookie season, and Shohei Ohtani, of course. But I think if not for Shohei, Yarbrough might have been AL Rookie of the Year in 2018, and that terrific year that he had, cobbling up all those wins. And then in 2019, I'll recall, came behind the opener in what was it? I think it was Game 4 of the ALDS after the open by Castillo. So again, coming behind the opener, and then in 2020 was the starter outright. He was the only guy really in the rotation that was stretched out, after the COVID layoff, if you will. And he gave the team some very valuable innings that allowed, to give the bullpen a rest every 5th day and allowed the rest of the starters to get stretched out and everything, and so that they could rely on him for 5 or 6 innings out every time he stepped on the mound. And that was a critical part. They had a lot of injuries, but it could have been worse, and allowed them to make that World Series run to the Fall Classic in 2020. And so and here in 2021, the script is still being written, and it includes a Ryan Yarbrough complete game. So I think that's absolutely terrific. Of course, that's what this game will always be known for, but on the other side, it was Garrett Cole getting the loss. So that's another interesting kind of anecdote to that game when we look back on it years later. 5 innings of 5 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 92 pitches was all the way through, 61 for strikes for Garrett Cole. This was Cole's first start after MLB came out and said that they're going to crack down on pitchers using illegal substances. And Garrett Cole, a guy that's long been accused by everyone, fellow teammates, fellow pitchers, and opposing batters, who have long accused him of using some kind of sticky stuff to get the spin rate up. This was his first start after that came down. So maybe he was not using it, and it was the worst start, probably one of his worst starts, if not his worst, as a New York Yankee. So that's interesting as well. And of course, I say that a little bit with the tongue planted in the cheek, but I think again, in every joke, there's a little bit of truth. Let's just say that much. And the offense, of course, with the 9 runs, was in full force for the Rays. 4 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Austin Meadows hit his 14th home run of the year to give the team a 2-1 lead, 409 feet to right. That was awesome. So, pulled, but it was a blast. Lau hit a 2 RBI single in the 5th. Yandy followed up with a 2 RBI single up the middle. Again, the line drive like he had tonight. So that's good to see him do. Then in the 7th, Meadows with a 16th double of the year. That was good for a run batted in. And then Wendell, an RBI single in there as well. So a lot of base runners, 4 walks, 10 strikeouts, and then the 10 hits. So as many hits as strikeouts at least. So that was what allowed them to get out to the big lead, which allowed Yarbrough to go later in the game, which allowed him to get the CG. So it all plays together, and as Hannibal says on the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together, and certainly on this day in Yankee Stadium, it did all come together. So with that being said, I think I can't end on a higher note than that, referencing the A-Team. So at 1:15 in the morning on Sunday, I've got work in less than 12 hours, so I have to get out of here. I want to thank everyone tuning into the program tonight, whether it was the Rays Reddit page, the Rays Discord server, wherever you saw the link. Definitely, if you're not already, make sure you're following me on Twitter at WHBCOfficial. Also, follow this show page on Spreaker.com where you're listening to the show. That way you get the link to the show right when it goes live. We will not be on the air tomorrow. Afternoon game against the Rangers. Off day Monday. They are playing Tuesday night against the Washington Nationals at home. We will be on the air after that game. We'll talk to you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66 FM.
HBC